Hello and welcome to Lakeside Reflections here on Heavenward Thinking. Today we're in Exodus chapter 14, talking about the parting of the Red Sea. And we're going to do this in a couple sections, so this will be part one of this series on Lakeside Reflections. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Tell the Israelites to turn back and encamp near Pi-Hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea. They are to encamp by the sea, directly opposite Baal-Zephon. Pharaoh will think the Israelites were wandering around the land of confusion, hemmed in by the desert, and I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will pursue them. But I will gain glory for myself through Pharaoh and all his army, and the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord." So the Israelites did this. When the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, Pharaoh and his officials changed their minds about them and said, "What have we done? We have let the Israelites go and have lost their services." So he took his chariot and made it ready, and took his army with him. He took 600 of the best chariots, along with all the other chariots of Egypt, with officers over all of them. The Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, so that he pursued the Israelites, who were marching out boldly. The Egyptians, all Pharaoh's horses and chariots, horsemen and troops, pursued the Israelites and overtook them as they camped by the sea near Pi-Hahiroth, opposite Baal-Zephon. As Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up, and there were the Egyptians marching out after them. They were terrified and cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, "Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the desert to die? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? Didn't we say to you in Egypt, 'Leave us alone, let us serve the Egyptians'? It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert." Moses answered the people, "Do not be afraid, stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." So there's a lot going on in this section. We see the Israelites, they're leaving, they're starting the exodus from Egypt back to the land that God had promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And so we see that they're moving out. They're doing what God has called them to do, and yet God warns Moses that he is going to harden Pharaoh's heart, and he is going to let their enemies come after them, pursue them, and try to overtake them, and they're going to have to trust in God. And yet he tells them that the reason for this is so that all the Egyptians will know that God is the Lord. He is going to gain glory for himself, it says in verse 4. He's going to gain the glory by completely annihilating Pharaoh's army here, and he is going to show that he is the only one true God. And he's going to do this not just for the Egyptians, but also to show the Israelites as well, as he leads them forward. And we're going to see that in the future. In Exodus, we see that they are reminded constantly of God's miraculous power, and yet they still stray from God from time to time, or maybe more often than not. But we see here in this passage that they have not yet seen this amazing miracle. They have already seen the plagues that were on Egypt, so they should have known God's power. They should have known God's faithfulness to them and his protection over them and his plan for them. But yet they were afraid, just like each and every one of us when we go through something terrible. We see that God has led us through things in the past. He makes an amazing providential way for us to get out of a terrible situation. Just like the Israelites were able to escape from slavery, God was setting them free and leading them forward. And not only were they leaving, but they were leaving after pretty much plundering the Egyptians, because God had changed the Egyptians' hearts toward them so that they would give them all this gold and all these clothes, all these great items that they were going to take with them. And so God had blessed them abundantly and provided a way for them, even though they had been facing incredible odds. So they should have already known, just like each and every one of us should know, that God is faithful and that he has amazing, abundant power and abundant blessing for each and every one of us. And yet, even though we know that, we still make the same mistake as the Israelites did in this chapter, where they get afraid and they cry and they moan and they complain. "What have you done? Didn't we say to you in Egypt, 'Leave us alone and let us serve the Egyptians'? It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert." And we may think this is an extreme complaint. We often look at the Israelites and go, "I would never say those things. I would never complain against God like that." And yet we do it on a daily basis. We come before the Lord and we say, "Why are you letting this happen in our life? Why is my life going wrong? Why is someone I love sick? Why am I going through hard times? Why did I lose my job?" We go through all these terrible things and we look to God and we say, "Why?" Instead of seeking the Lord and bringing our requests before the Lord and being confident that the Lord is going to provide, just as he has done in the past, that he will provide in the present and the future. And yet, God is going to show the Israelites, even though they're whining and complaining, even though they don't have the right attitude, he is going to show them his power of deliverance. He is going to deliver them even though they don't have the right attitude. And Moses, in this section, he has an incredible attitude. He tells the people, do not be afraid, stand firm, and you will see the deliverance of the Lord that he is going to bring you today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. And that verse is a very famous verse. We quote it often, and it's very powerful because it shows us that we cannot do things on our own. Our own strength is not enough. The Israelites in this story here, they could not have fought these Egyptians themselves. If they had turned and tried to fight, they would have been annihilated by the chariots. But God had a different plan. He was going to make a way for them if they would just be still, if they would just listen to his commands, if they would just trust in him, like Moses was doing. He was trusting in the faithfulness of God. He had already seen what God could do and what God had done through him and all the miracles that God had already performed. He saw that God was going to do the same thing again. And this time it was going to be even more abundant of a sign, even more powerful of a sign to show that God truly is the only God, the only Lord, and that all other gods are false. And so in this section, we need to be more like Moses, where we have that faith, the confidence in God, where we realize that we just need to be still and wait upon the Lord, that he is going to be the one fighting for us, not ourselves, but that God is going to fight on our behalf, and he will take care of us if we have our faith and our trust and our hope put in him, not in our own strength and not anything in this world. Because the Egyptians, they seemed to have the upper hand in this section, right? They were coming out with 600 of the best chariots and all the other chariots, all these horsemen, all these other men. They were coming and they were going to annihilate these people. And yet, God is so much stronger. He's stronger than anything that could come at us because he is God and we are not. Nothing else is. And so we see his abundant protection, his provision, his providential plan. And we're going to see next week what Moses' response is, what the people's response is to the second half of the story, where we see God do an amazing miracle that showcases his power for the world. And so I would encourage you to this week read the section that we just read, these first 14 verses, and then read the next section where you're going to see the whole story and see the power of God. But look not just at the miracle and that power, but look at the interactions, the different things that the different people in the story are saying. What is Pharaoh doing in this story? What are the Israelites doing? What's Moses doing? And then, of course, what is God doing? And how is he working throughout this whole story? Because we can see ourselves in different aspects of this, and we can see different parts of this story in different ways in the 21st century. There are times where things seem overwhelming, like the pharaohs in life, where there is an army that seems to be coming against us, where there's something that we cannot face on our own. And yet, just like in this story, we have a God who is amazingly powerful, and he is able to handle these giant battles that we couldn't handle on our own. So I want to encourage you with that this week and challenge you to put your hope, your faith, your trust in God, and to continually trust in him, not to be dismayed by the overwhelming odds of this world. And then join us next time for another episode of Lakeside Reflections here on Heavenward Thinking.